Breaking the Code with Gabriella tells the story of a young girl who overcomes gender stereotypes in robotics, cementing herself as a role model for young women. The book includes science and engineering information such as the design process and Java tutorials. As part of our initiative to empower young girls to pursue their interests in STEM, we are running the Breaking the Code with Gabriella Trailblazers in STEM speaker series, which explores the careers of women in science, technology, engineering, and math. The series aims to dispel gender stereotypes and aid young girls in getting advice on how to pursue their own passions. Today, I'm here with Fernanda Sulantay Vargas, who's a chemical engineer, a computational scientist, a content creator, and a mom of two kids. She was born and grew up in El Salvador and moved to the United States when she was 19 years old. As the first person in her family to go to college, Fernanda faced many challenges but achieved remarkable academic milestones, including a bachelor's degree and two master's degrees in chemical engineering. She is now working on her PhD at Yale University, where she was awarded the National Science Foundation Graduate Research Fellowship and the GEM Fellowship. Fernanda has more than 350,000 followers on social media, where she shares her journey in STEM and gives advice on how to succeed in college. Now, I'll let you tell me a little bit more about yourself and your journey in STEM, anything that you think is notable.
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Fernanda. Um, yeah, my journey in STEM started in middle school. At that time, I took an algebra class and I started taking like some science classes, and I started to gravitate towards those classes because they were like very fun for me. And, later on in high school, I took more. And then, this is where you decide what you want to study in college. And at that point, I actually wanted to study math. I didn't know what engineering was, but my math professor told me, like, you know what, you should try for engineering. So I looked it up and decided to go for it. But at that moment, I actually didn't know exactly what engineers did. But I just look at the curriculum and I'm like, okay, there's a lot of science classes, a lot of math classes. This looks fun. And that's how it all started. But now I really love it because, with science and math, you can understand the world literally. But with engineering, you can create and innovate for the future. And what was the second part of your question?
Just anything about your future goals or current interests that you think would be notable to share.
Yes. So, as you mentioned, right now I'm doing research and working on my PhD, which is gonna be done in about 2 years. After that, I want to work in a startup in like the research and development area, and then later on start my own startup. So, and then the other thing, it's like, as you mentioned, I do social media, and this is like my way of doing outreach. So I see myself still working to do outreach. I think this is something that I love to like help students that I know have a passion, but probably have a disadvantage. So I love like to work with them to do that.
Yeah, so I know you mentioned that you're currently a PhD student at Yale. Could you give a little bit more insight about what you're doing and what your day-to-day tasks look like?
Yes. So every day is different. When you're doing your PhD, well, at the beginning, if you're doing a PhD in the US, you have to do research, but also you have to take a lot of classes. Once you're done with your classes, usually it's like around the first 2 years, then you're just doing research. And I say it's different because it depends on like what stage you are. Like either you're reading a lot of papers to do like the literature review to start a project, or you're already working on your project, doing experiments, troubleshooting, reading more to figure out like how to fix some problems, because remember, like you're doing something that it's new, nobody has done this before. So it's a lot of trial and error, and a lot of error, which I wasn't used to, but yeah, now I'm definitely used to that. And then and or you're in the stage of like writing either the papers that you're going to publish or your dissertation. So, depending in what stage I am, that's what I'm doing. And the cool thing is that because I do computational work, I can either work from home or I go to the university I go to libraries or like different spots because I don't have to be in a lab, like I just need my laptop and I'm good.
Yeah, that sounds super interesting. So, for people who might be considering a doctoral degree, what advice would you give to them?
Yes. I think that when I did it, I wasn't thinking a lot about anything. I feel like I was just like super interested in like doing science and doing research. But now looking back, I think it's very important, like in your undergrad, to explore and like try different things. So, first of all, I will encourage people to do research in their undergrad at least one time so you can figure out if this is something that you really want to commit to, because doing a PhD, it's a long commitment. So I feel like getting a taste of it before deciding it's super important. And also like try to do like an internship so you also get a taste of industry and then you can decide. Um, and then once you're choosing your PhD program, I will say that I feel like a lot of people go by like the name of the university, but I feel like there's a lot more to it. You should figure out if the lab that you will be joining it's a good place for you. How do the graduate students look like? Like are they happy to work there? Do they feel like the money they're getting paid? Because when you're doing your PhD, you get paid for that. So like, are you getting paid enough to live in the city where you're gonna be living? Because that's actually super important. Like I have friends who were getting paid like half of what you needed to live in that city. So that means that you need to take extra jobs, and then you have like more to do, like more work, more burden. So that's something to look at. And then and then once you decide, as I said, this is a commitment for 5 years. So I feel like you should decide on something that you have a passion that you really like, because as I mentioned, there's gonna be a lot of trial and error. And you really have to like believe in yourself. So like I feel like you have to work on yourself, on your time management skills, and also like the discipline that you're gonna have.
Yeah, definitely. Lots of great advice for, aspiring scientists. So, throughout your doctoral degree, what would you say was the most surprising part of your experience that you might not have anticipated before starting?
Yeah, as I was mentioning at the end of my last answer, I feel like what I was thinking when I decided that I was gonna do my PhD, I was thinking like, oh my God, it's gonna be so hard. And even when I started, like the classes were difficult, and I'm like, oh my God, like this is like I felt like the science was gonna be the hardest part, but in reality, I feel like the self-discipline is the hardest part, because like you don't have a lot of deadlines. Like there's a lot of times where you're just like working. And I feel like, when you're taking a class, you're gonna have an exam, you have a homework due. So that literally pushes you like, oh my God, like I have to get it done by tomorrow. But in a PhD, you don't have those strict deadlines. So it really comes to you, to have those that self-discipline and those time management skills. um and as I mentioned before, because there's a lot of trial and error, I feel like you have to like change your mindset, because when I came from undergrad, you're used to getting like either the wrong or the right answer. You go to the exam, you get a grade, you give your homework, you get a grade, but like everything has a solution. But then you come to your PhD or like you do research, and you realize that things are failing. You don't know if they're right or wrong. Like you have to like make sense of it. So a lot of it, it's unknown. So you have to have like that change in mindset. And I feel like I was not anticipating all like that self growth that I did.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like a very rigorous, but rewarding process. So
Yes.
you're a prominent guest speaker. How have doing speeches and conversations just like this enriched your own experience and benefited others?
Yeah, I love going to speak to conferences or like schools and events like that because I love to share my story because I feel like sharing your story, it's very important to impact people that might think that they're not going to be able to do things like this. And this is something that I went through as well. Like, you know, as you mentioned, like I'm a first generation student, like my parents didn't go to college, so I never saw that, in my house. Like how did my like I never saw how people like get degrees, like my parents only have a high school diploma. And also like I immigrated from El Salvador, and there were a lot of challenges, and I was in a situation where I thought I was never gonna get out of the situation, like where I was living. I had to like work full time and then go to school, and I'm like, when is this gonna be easy? Like, am I ever gonna make it? And I remember that when I was at the end of my undergrad, I went to this conference that it was to talk about graduate school. And I saw this girl. There were like different universities. There are like people from different universities, and I went to the MIT booth because if you're in engineering, like you love MIT. And I saw this girl, and she was also Latina, and I was talking to her, and she was telling me like you always think that the people that go to these places are like super smart and they've been working for this since like first grade. And yeah, maybe like some are, but like some people are just they just have a passion. They're good at what they do, but maybe they didn't have that opportunity to have like tutors in high school or in undergrad, and they had to work and all these things. And she was telling me her story, and it sounded a lot like mine. And I was like, okay, like if she applied, then I can apply to these universities too. So that's what encouraged me to apply to Yale, for example. And I really didn't think that I was gonna get in, but after I heard her story, I'm like, okay, like maybe I'm just gonna apply just in case. And I got it. So that's what I love about going to speak, because like people come to me after and they're like, oh, like they're telling me like I also went to a community college because I went to a community college. I'm also an immigrant or whatever. And I see in them like, okay, like they see that I did it, so now they're feeling inspired to do it. And I think it's also beneficial to me because I love doing outreach, but also this is a way of networking and finding out what's out there. Like for example, your story, I was looking at what you girls are doing with your book. I actually like have it on my Amazon card. I'm gonna order it in Spanish, and I feel like it's so amazing. I'm like, wow, like I was not that type of kid in high school or middle school, but like you guys are doing amazing, and it's great to meet other people out there.
Yeah, thank you so much. And your story sounds super motivational, and I can definitely see how everyone would be inspired by that.
Thank you.
Throughout your career, have you faced any challenges as a woman in a male-dominated field, and how have you overcome them?
Yeah, I feel like yeah, you face the different challenges, and I think the most important one for me it's because I have two kids, and I had my son when I was in undergrad actually, and then my daughter I had her during my PhD. So I've been a student and like a woman in STEM while I had my kids, and to me it was very surprising how like this system it's not ready for moms in these type of careers. Because when I was like asking for accommodations for simple stuff for moms, they were like non-existent, and everyone was like, what's going on? But it's like 2024, like don't you have accommodations for moms? What about the professors? Like, and I realized that even the professors were having problems, when, for example, like getting a pump in the room, if you're like breastfeeding, and but you have to go back to work and then you have to pump, things like that. I was just like surprised, and then you just have to like figure it out. And I feel like because they're not a lot of us, maybe that's why like the system hasn't changed. But and this situation, it's already hard for us. Like it's already hard to be a mom and a woman in STEM. Like, I mean, it's a lot of work. And then the fact that they make it harder, I feel like sometimes it can be discouraging. But I guess this is what happens where like you're like one of the first doing this type of stuff.
Yeah, I definitely agree. There, even especially in this day and age, there should definitely be a lot more accommodations in science that don't exist. Like I know for a lot of astronomy sites, because I was just talking to someone about this, they're not accessible by wheelchair or like for disabled people at all. And it's essentially if you are, say, you're in a wheelchair or you have some other accommodation that you need, it's pretty much impossible for you to access some of these telescopes and sites. So I think a lot definitely does need to be done in that aspect.
Hmm.
So finally, you're active on social media and you share science news, progress, and your own work. What do you hope to achieve with this account?
Yes. So I feel like I have gotten more out of it than I thought I was gonna get because at the beginning it was more of like my way of doing outreach. Like before I had kids and before the pandemic, I used to go and volunteer in person a lot. And after I had my son, so it was like harder to go and do these things. And then the pandemic happened. So I feel like I started doing like the outreach online and a lot of people liked it. It went well. So it became like different things for me. Like now, besides doing the outreach and connecting with people, it's also my business because I'm working with brands and I like never thought I was gonna do that. And it's also, as I said, like a way of networking. I've met a lot of friends and also I met like even business partners and also my creative side hustle, like I have so much fun creating content and then editing. It's just like a way of like, okay, I'm not doing science, I'm doing this thing that's fun, and I hope it's entertaining for people. Like sometimes I put out memes, and it's just like I love memes. Like we're the memes generation, so I think it's just like it brings like a light to if you're like having a bad day or something, and you go on social media and you just have a laugh for a little bit.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like a great way to like unwind after work and also be able to inspire like the next generation. So finally, if there is any piece of career related advice you could give to your middle school self, what would it be and why?
Yes, I would like to give advice to the kids nowadays, because I feel like my middle school experience was different than the experience that middle school students and high school students are going through right now. And it's actually about social media. I do love social media and I work on social media, but I feel like now kids are like chronically online, and that's not good for like anyone's mental health. Like even my mental health, like if it's bad for adults, like I cannot even imagine for kids. So my like what people don't know, it's like even though I work on social media, I take breaks. Like sometimes I delete the apps for like the whole week and I just open it on the weekend or even for some time when I feel like it's getting out of control. And I feel like it's just like bad to just be online. And I remember when I was a kid, like I was outside playing with my friends and I was just like having fun. And I feel like also I've seen a lot of kids that they're like very worried about the future and they feel like they have to do like a lot of stuff right then when they are in middle school. And I'm gonna tell you, you're gonna be fine. Like you can have your time to study and work on your things, but also have fun and be a kid because as an adult, let me tell you, you're gonna have a lot of responsibilities. It's not fun, all the time. Like this is the only time that you're gonna be like truly free. So like get off your phone and go have fun, like do activities outside, even if it's like, doing like volunteering for your resume or like doing things that is gonna be helpful for your career, like do them outside and like interact with people because I feel like yeah, being online all the time, it's not good. So that will be my advice to like have fun, go outside, still like work on your stuff, but like be a kid.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree with that. I think social media often and like just online communities in general often deprive people of genuine like face-to-face interaction, and that's starting to really go away. And will only continue to do so in the future. I think that's definitely a trend that's pretty worrying. And I totally agree with all of your heartfelt advice. Well, thank you.
Yes, because, oh, sorry, can I just say one
No,
more thing?
yeah,
Yeah, because I was gonna say like it is helpful in like many ways because you can connect with people that you wouldn't imagine or like you get these experiences that you wouldn't imagine. But at the same time, as you said, like face-to-face interactions are super important. So I feel like both going hand in hand, but like you like limiting your time online, it's gonna be helpful for people.
yeah, for sure. And I think that having like just speaking to someone in person, whether it be about like your academic interests or something like one of your hobbies, that's just very invaluable and cannot be replicated.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for speaking with me today.
Oh, it was so great. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.